Hi guys, welcome back. Day 7, and it's the dreaded frog picture. I'm just giving people one more day to flash on the colors for the other picture that we're going to be working on, and I will leave the link for that picture in the description box. It's Annie's coloring. So, in fact, I have it here. This is the one that we will be doing. And so, I'm going to sit here and talk to you while I'm working on the dreaded frog picture again. Eventually, I will get this done. It's just a long time. So, what'd you think of our decision? I am now living with a 12-foot trampoline as my living room. So, I wanted to tell you the story behind this trampoline while I'm sitting here coloring. So, I guess this is story time. When I was growing up, I lived on Long Island. You could tell by my accent. I'm a definite New Yorker. And I lived on the South Shore. My house was not on the water, as in my backyard was not the water. When you went down my street, it was a dead-end street, and when you went down my street, that's where the water was. So I grew up on the ocean, the Atlantic, Long Island Sound, and my grandparents lived in a house right around the corner from us, and they lived with the beach in their backyard. I mean, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And so, back when I lived there and grew up, it was a little bit more of a formal time. And my mother being a product of the 50s, you know, young in the 50s, teenager, they had a different mindset. It was very, well, I don't have to explain the 50s to you. You guys know what the 50s are. And if you're young enough to not know what it was like in the 50s, well, aren't you lucky? But we grew up with formal living rooms, and I'm sure everybody remembers those formal living rooms that had the covers on the seat cushions that were made of plastic that you would stick to. Dreadful things. By the way, I grew up with plastic on my couch my entire life. I mean, I was in my late teens by the time I actually sat on material. And what was worse is that we would tear that plastic and my mother would just tape it. It was terrible. But everybody did that. That's what you did back then. So when I grew up and had my own place, I swore up and down and backwards I was not going to have a room in my house that we did not use. Now, if anybody else has grown up with a formal living room, you know you don't play in the formal living room. It sits there. So my husband and I got married, and we lived in one of those tiny houses. Like, you ever watch YouTube and you search and you see tiny house? That's what I lived in, one of those. And let me tell you, it was fantastic. Oh, that was like our favorite house. It was literally 600 square feet. It had 3 rooms. It looked like a train car. Tiny rooms, teeny tiny rooms, barely, like, there were days that we had to, like, step aside for each other just walking through it. But we thought we had everything. It was so much fun to live in. And we lived in there for 2 years. And then we moved to another house because we wanted to start a family. And that house was awful. It was just horrible. We rented it. We thought the landlord was going to be very nice and we'd get along with them really well. And apparently there was strife in the household. What it was a mother-daughter house. And then it had like a small apartment out back that was like a like a basement almost that wasn't attached to the house. Like you couldn't get to it from the house. And apparently they had a older daughter that still lived at home that resented us living in the upstairs of this mother-daughter house. And the parents were really, really nice, but this daughter was horrible. She was so mean to us, and we did nothing to her. And the parents were so sweet, but they were elderly, and I'm going off because I'm coloring. They were elderly and a little sick, a little sickly, older people. And because I was a nurse, they were constantly calling me downstairs to check their blood pressure, to take a pulse. It was just terrible. And we lived there for 3 months, and we signed a 1-year lease on that house. And at the 3-month mark, we were coming home unexpectedly. And as we're walking, it had a private entrance, and as we were walking up into our apartment, somebody was walking down the stairs from our apartment. There were these strangers going through our apartment. We were like, what the And it was a real estate agent who had been showing the house the entire time that we were living in there and bringing people through our home. It was just terrible. We had a 1-year lease on the house, and we had no idea that this house was up for sale. They didn't tell us. We would never have taken the apartment because we planned on staying there for like 2 years. So we found out this house was, up for rent, and they finally found, or up for sale, and they found a buyer who, the sale was contingent on us leaving. They were purchasing the house for their daughter and mother situation, and they didn't want us there. So we had a year's lease. We're 3 months into this. We had every right to stay for the year. It was like illegal. They couldn't throw us out. And in fact, we could have made life very difficult for them. But honestly, we didn't want to live there. Now, this apartment was huge. It was the upstairs of a house, and it had 3 bedrooms, which we planned on starting a family, and that's why we rented a place to begin with multiple bedrooms. It had 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, a living room that I could have landed a plane in. It was huge. A kitchen, dining room combo. And the place was beautiful, but we were just not happy there. We were just like, we couldn't wait to get out. And it turned out that we never used the living room. Not one time. I don't think my husband ever walked into the living room the entire time we were in this place. And we never used the other bedrooms. So they made us a deal that if we would agree to leave, we could stay there for 3 months rent-free, because that's how long it was going to take for them to need that room. And we could stay there for 3 months for free, and then when we had to get out. And we wanted out anyways, and so we took the deal on it, and we agreed to move out for the 3 months. But at this point, it was ridiculous for us to move into another apartment. So we rented, well, we didn't rent, we moved back with my parents into that house on Long Island on the South Shore. And we were going to just live there for a very short amount of time, because we were in the process now of saying we don't want to rent anymore. Let's just buy a house on our own. And we moved in with my parents, and unfortunately at that time my mother developed cancer while we were living there. And on top of that, I got pregnant at the same time with my oldest daughter. So moving out was not an option at this point. And when my mother finally passed from the cancer, we stayed in the house and we bought my parents' house. Well, I had this formal living room that my mother cherished to pieces, and it was really big. It was a large house. And I understood where my mother was coming from with it, because my grandmother in that other house had the same situation. They had this formal living room and a formal dining room, and we were not allowed to walk in it. Like, you did nothing, no kids allowed in those two rooms of the house. And not only did my mother not want us in that room, she put blockades up. She put like gates up that we couldn't even walk into the room. And my brother and I, we were like obnoxious little kids. My mother would vacuum the carpet constantly. She loved those little triangular marks that the vacuum cleaner left in the carpet. And every time my parents went out, me and my brother did a beeline to the rooms that we were not allowed to go in and scuffed up the carpet just to drive my mother crazy. And then, of course, we would deny it, and she would, like, stay out of the living room. So I swore up, down, backwards, I was not going to live in a situation where I had anything in my house that's formal. I was done with it. From apartments that I didn't use living rooms to, and just had wasted space, to formal living rooms. In fact, when my mother passed away and we finally dismantled the formal living room, the couches in there, from not being sat on, petrified. And they were like bricks. And it was really sad because it was good furniture that nobody ever sat on. So, flash forward it to my children. And I raised my children in the house that I grew up in, or at least for the first 15 years of my oldest daughter's life. Less, of course, for my younger daughters. And that was before we moved to Las Vegas. Well, moving into here, I have two living rooms. The one in the front of the house and the one in the back where the kitchen is. We never used the front room, but I didn't make it a formal living room. I allowed my kids they did gymnastics. When they were younger, that was like the gymnastics room. I left it virtually empty. When they got to be a little bit older, that's when we got the pool table. I had the foosball table back in New York, and that came with us, so that was always really in there. And they never played too much foosball. And then we got the pinball machine in there, so that was like the game room. And as soon as it became the game room, nobody went in there. I could count on my hands how many times maybe some guys, like boyfriends of my daughters, would go in there, play a game or two, and that was about it. We never used that pool table. And my daughter has been bugging me all this time. Could we get a trampoline? Well, I want a trampoline in that room. Who the heck has a 12-foot trampoline in their house, in their living room? So I always said no to her. But that child, being who she is, will wear me down. And it took her all these years to wear me down. So with this virus and us being stuck in the house, I just said to her, life is so short not to use your living room. And not, even though it's weird to have a trampoline instead of a living room now, and when people walk into my house, the first thing they see is this gigantic trampoline. Well, sharpen that. I don't care anymore. Honestly, with the way the world is changing and you're really learning to appreciate living and feeling lucky about and blessed, every one of us who's breathing right now. Um, and it breaks my heart what's going on in Italy. It's and that's possibly our future. Hoping not, of course, but it's a scary time. And my daughter was still bothering me for this trampoline after all these years. She's like, it's ridiculous that we have all this. I said, listen, if you could sell that pool table and the foosball table, and I didn't even care how much she sold it for, I just wanted it out of my house. I was even willing to just give it to somebody. Just take it. You can get your trampoline. And that girl's determination, that's what she did. So we all chipped in for it for her birthday. That was her birthday gift. And from everybody. And today they set it up. And she is happy as can be. Well, everybody was bouncing on it today, except for me. I didn't bounce on it yet. I will. I just figured, with my having just hurt my leg and my arm, maybe it's not the best time to go on a trampoline at my age, but eventually I will go on it. I keep eyeballing it and going, yeah, I got to try it at least once, So I'm going to eventually do it. I need a lighter color blue. I'm into this one last area. So that is my story of why I have agreed to have a trampoline in my living space. We don't, you guys have seen my backyard. We don't have the room in the backyard. It's not set up for it. We got the pool down there, which takes up most of the yard. And then my patio on the upper deck. And there's no room for a trampoline there. Let it be crazy. We're living in crazy times. I just imagine the next stranger who walks into my house, like somebody I don't know, like a repairman or something like that, and the expression on what their face is going to be seeing that. That is my trampoline story. So I'm really excited about the colors that I picked for the new picture that I'm doing. And I don't want to give it away. I've already chosen the color. I love the color combinations everybody have been, flashing on. And that is the way you should really do every picture now. Your gut reaction. So I did pick the color that it's going to be. And it's not a color that I flashed on. It's one of you guys' colors. I flashed on colors that you guys did. Other people did see it in that color. Now, the only thing I'm going to tell you about it is it's not purple. And the reason why it's not going to be purple, and because I like people saying purple. The reason why I didn't choose that was because in her Etsy shop, Andy's Etsy shop, somebody, she has examples, and somebody did that picture in purple. And why bother redoing the same picture? I don't want to do that. I want to do my own. So that color is off the table. And the reason I'm not doing the color that I flashed on, because it's a color that I've just done so many times, and I have so many tutorials on those colors that I'll give you a hint. It is a color that I've never done or tried to do. It's a difficult color combination to get right, and several people have put it down as their match. So I have to actually figure it out. It's not even that, it's not a thing that I could pick up my pencil and just say, oh, this is the color here. It's a combo color. And I like that. So I'm just giving it another day for me to be able to get the color right. I would not say this is going to be an easy color. It's not an easy color. But I can use a little bit of a challenge. I don't know, it was a blah day. And once, not for the kids. They're not even kids. I just call them my kids. They're not kids. They're young adults. They'll always be my kids. I don't care how old they are. I mean, geez, one of them is engaged. It's like they are not children. But for the adults in the household, it was kind of like a nothing day. Am I the only person who's like running into like, what day of the week is it? Like, I thought it was Thursday the other day and it was like Sunday, and it just feels like this is just going on and on. I am looking forward to, I just want a normal life back. I just want it back to normal. I want to unappreciate things again. Now it's like I'm appreciating a lot more. There was something else that I wanted to talk about, something that several people brought up. And I thought it was really interesting. Everybody's giving their theories and stuff. The earth may be kicking back. And the way my subscriber talked about it, several of them talked about the same thing. How good for the planet this is. Because we stopped driving our cars. And even though it's going to be a relatively short amount of time, the earth is going to kick back really quick. I mean, the earth heals itself. So, I mean, if we're going to go into, is this a good environmental thing? I think this is a very good environmental thing. Not a people thing. It's horrible. But they were right. My subscribers were right. And it was really interesting to listen to what they were saying. They were writing about it being good for animals. Nobody's hunting for sport. Nobody's running boats on the ocean for oil to be in the water. Nobody is driving around so the air quality is better. I mean, it's just food for thought because we have a lot of time to think. I didn't check today's statistics on how many are in my town. We went up a lot yesterday. We're like going up by about 50 a day for the last couple of days of confirmed cases. My state is still at only 2 deaths. God, I feel it's so weird. Like 2 months ago, you didn't check for the dead. Now, it's like really scary. I saw something really seriously sad, and I don't think it's real because I can't comprehend it being real. And please tell me that this is an internet bullshit story, that in Italy, they're denying people that are 65 and older ventilators because there's so few ventilators left that doctors are having to make these life and death decisions. And the struggle is so hard there that doctors are giving the younger people who have more of a chance to survive this the ventilators. I'm horrified if this is true. Absolutely horrified, because I would never want to be that doctor that made that type of decision. That's like playing God. Like there was once a movie about a boat capsizing, and these people were out on a boat, and they had to throw certain people overboard for this boat to survive. It's a horrible movie. I was traumatized as a child with these movies. This was a movie that was just absolutely not appropriate for kids that I watched when I was a child. And I'm sure somebody out there knows this movie, but it was how everybody in the boat was deciding who was going to live and who was going to die, and some of them were like they were throwing the old people off because they're not as productive, and it was just like when I heard this story, and it came from Twitter, so I heard it on Twitter. So of course you never believe everything you see on Twitter. If it's a real story, I'm even afraid to check to see if it's real or not, because that would be probably the worst thing I've heard so far. I could never. It's scary. But listen, we got to do what the greater minds are saying. Stay in and stay safe. Don't give it to other people. In a couple of days, somebody is going to have to go out in my house. It's probably going to be me, because I'm not letting my husband or my father go out. The kids may do it, but they screw up shopping all the time. I don't know if I would tell my kids to do it. I'll probably end up going to the stores early in the morning. I heard the stores were not that bad anymore here. I don't know, we haven't been in the stores in a week, which is so weird for us because we usually food shop every day. We were never the type of family or I wasn't the type of person that kept a lot of food in the house, because we would just wake up in the morning and say, oh, what do you want for dinner tonight? And we just had that lifestyle that's what we did. And my father would usually enjoy going out, like say, oh, let's have hamburgers tonight. He would go out and get chopped meat, and I do the cooking. Or my husband is an excellent cook. And that's how we did it. Like, we very rarely did huge shops. And my kids very rarely eat with us, too. Oh my gosh, it's been a half hour. Okay, I'm going to call it. And I will see you guys tomorrow. We will start the other picture. Take care.